Guys, it's me again. It figured it's been 3 years since the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and I would like to discuss the lessons learned from it. You see, the thing is like the Taliban utterly crushed the Afghan National Army after the U.S. left, and I was just shocked and dismayed that it happened like that. And they recaptured their old capital, Kabul, without a shot being fired, pretty much. And it I saw the U.S. military, the greatest military on earth, defeated. But what can we learn from it? What mistakes were made? Let's go over what I've learned. I highly encourage everyone to watch the documentary America's Longest War. How did America's Good War become its longest war and ultimately its defeat and ultimately lead to its defeat? Let's find out. Okay, here's my opinion on the subject. First off, Stanley McChrystal had the beginning of some right idea. We should have taken a year off and after 9/11 and just trained our troops in languages like Pashtun, Arabic, Turkic, and Farsi. And whereas the temperature and bloodlust in America high? Yeah, but it's best to remain objective and try to keep a cool head. Anyhow, I would go a little bit further than Stanley McChrystal. See, that's the beginning of the right idea, but it's not enough. Knowing the language is great. I mean, that's wonderful. But it doesn't do all the work. There's still a lot of tribal things that happen, cultures and customs that have to be identified and understood. Not only that, there is the Islamic way of doing things, and that needed to be understood as well. Know your enemy, know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in peril. That's what Sun Tzu said. And which brings me to my next point. Afghanistan should have been just handed over to the Northern Alliance to do as they pleased after they drove the Taliban out. They were able to trade blows with the Taliban for years before the U.S. arrived. And as a result, they could be trusted to lead the country. Would it have been ideal? No, no. I would much rather live in a Western style democracy, but Afghanistan is not a Western country. Their culture and customs are not the same as ours. Their worldview is not the same as ours. And that needs to be understood. I mean, it's like the the literacy rate of Afghans went up when the U.S. was there. Infant mortality went down, and it seemed like the U.S. was doing good things, which it was. But the thing is that's just not enough. You know, the Taliban, although it imposed very harsh, strict Islamic law, it still enforced the law and it was able to keep order. And the corrupt Afghani government just couldn't. Because, like, remember what I talked about the tribal thing before? The reason the Afghan National Army was just a shell. There wasn't really any substance behind it. It was corrupt. I mean, it was supposed to have 300,000 troops. It really only had 60,000. That was because of corruption. And see, the thing is their loyalties a lot of the time were to their tribe or their village, not to some corrupt Afghan national government, you know? And a lot of those people were thrust into units with people from other tribes that they hated. And quite naturally, they didn't play well together. And in order for a team to work, everybody has to be willing to work with the other and put their differences aside. If you can't do that, you will lose very, very quickly, no matter how much training and technology you have. But also, it's like Afghanistan in 2001, at the end of 2001, should have just been given to the Northern Alliance. Again, give it to the Northern Alliance. They were able to trade blows with the Taliban, unlike the Afghan government, which collapsed the second the Taliban knocked on their door, without U.S. support, of course. They were able to last for a while without U.S. support, but that was the only thing sustaining them. And the thing about the Taliban is like, if you look at the average U.S. infantryman, equipping him costs $17,000. And don't even get me started on what it takes to equip a DevGru or Delta Force operator or any other member of JSOC. It's just, but think about it, $17,000. How many Taliban could you equip with that? The U.S. spent a huge amount of money, and the thing is the Taliban's way of war was sustainable. The U.S.'s was not. See, the insurgencies have been defeating professional militaries since World War II on a pretty consistent basis. I mean, you have not only the U.S. in Afghanistan, you have the U.S. in Vietnam. Both were defeats for the U.S. and pretty much the only wars we ever lost. There was also the Soviets in Afghanistan. They didn't do too hot either. Israel and South Lebanon, the French in Vietnam and Algeria, the Russians in the First Chechen War. All of these were losses. I could go on and on and on. There are a few exceptions to this, with professional militaries being able to defeat or at least achieve a stalemate with insurgencies, such as the British in Northern Ireland, for one, FARC in Colombia for two, the Second Chechen War, even though the First Chechen War went horribly, horribly wrong. And then you have, to an extent, the insurgency, the U.S. in Iraq. Granted, that was a pretty hollow victory, if that. And, no. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that, the U.S. completely mishandled it. And it's like, as far as keeping infrastructure going, that has to be the number one priority, is keep the infrastructure going, because that's what causes insurgencies. Is when there's no infrastructure, that's just a breeding ground for insurgencies. And the U.S. never should have gone to Iraq. When the U.S. went to Iraq, it gave the Taliban years to build up, The Iraq War was just so foolish on so many levels. And, but anyhow, we need to learn from this, guys. There were a lot of things that in Vietnam that we didn't learn from, and decades later we paid the price. And I just hope that people will get their heads out of their asses this time and learn something. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be good, y'all, and God bless. Peace.